Brett, thanks for joining us here on the JumpSearch Talent Show. I'm so excited to have you. As a brief introduction, Brett is an executive career coach at Cohen Career Consulting, serving senior and mid-career professionals through their high-impact leadership coaching and personalized career support. With nearly 20 years of experience in tech and med tech sectors, including roles at Google, Lenovo, Motorola, Fitbit, Nuvasive, and Blue Apron, Brett has a career leading complex product R&D and operational initiatives at scale. Now he brings the same strategist mindset into coaching, guiding clients through pivotal transitions with clarity, confidence, and real-world insight. He's also an executive MBA candidate at UNC, Keenan Flagler, class of 2026, which is coming up. And he holds certifications including PMP, CSPO, Agile Hardware Practitioner. And like me, Brett, comes from a sort of a technical mechanical engineering background and has navigated a very sort of a similar career path in terms of having some very interesting pivots. So welcome, Brett. It's great to have you here. I'm really excited to kind of dig deeper and see what we can learn today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And with an intro like that, do we still have time to have a conversation? It's that was a long one. Oh, I didn't think about all my accomplishments that way. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know if you're like me. I get uncomfortable when people start talking about me in that sort of vein, but hopefully you're not too uncomfortable.
No, I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Brett, so it's a wild world we live in these days, and there's a lot going on. So I'm so curious, to learn more and to dive in more in terms of what you're seeing out there with respect to, how you're guiding executives right now. I mean, companies are laying people off. People are trying to navigate their careers, and you're not just people that are sort of early stage in their careers, but people that have been around the block, right? They're quite accomplished. They think they have a playbook for what works as far as managing their career, but it feels like things are just sort of getting upended, right? And you seem to have like a front seat to this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just so excited to kind of dig into this with you because I think there's a lot of folks in our audience that can benefit from some of the trends you might be seeing. So why don't we just dive in? I mean, what are some of the things, maybe you can give a little bit of background in terms of your coaching, the kinds of folks that you're coaching, just kind of lay the background a little bit, and then we can sort of dive into questions there.
Yeah, most of our clients are senior to executive level. And one of the things that we've heard the most from those individuals over the course of, especially over the last couple of years, is I've never had to search for a job before. This is the first time in my 15, 20, 25 year career that I'm actually having to, go pound pavement and reach out to my network or apply to 100 jobs. And I'm not even really getting a response. There's definitely been a shakeup in the job market, and senior leaders and beyond are really having to learn how to rebound from layoffs or a company closing up shop, or they're having to venture out on their own just to try to keep the momentum.
Yeah, it's a strange and it's a tough time. I think that it feels like a lot of folks are going to have to reinvent themselves. I guess, what are you seeing right now in terms of folks that, like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing with respect to folks that are trying to navigate their job search and maybe having to reinvent themselves?
Yeah, a lot of it's confidence based. These folks are facing either whether it was layoffs, this is the reason why they're looking, or, a step back in their career for one reason or another. It's that hit to the confidence. And then you compound it when they go into the job market and they get crickets from, applying to jobs that they're more than qualified for. We at Close Cohen feel like the candidates sort of deserve better. Too often employers are taking advantage of this current power dynamic. It's no longer a candidates market. 2 to 5 years ago, job seekers were just able to write their own check. And really quickly, in the last few years, job seekers now find themselves massively outgunned.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm a, either a senior executive or even an early management level person, and over the past 10, 15, 20 years, I've just been killing it. I have, really remarkable accomplishments. I have a great pedigree. I'm well spoken. I can interview well. And if I've just been pounding my head against the wall for the past 6, whatever, even 9 months, 12 months, how do you guide somebody like that? Like, they're doing the 90, maybe 95% of what they need to be doing as far as navigating their job search, but they're not getting the traction, right? And they start getting this blow to their confidence and morale. What do you say to somebody like that? What kind of coaching, what kind of guidance, resources, support, what do you guys offer?
Well, first, it's the frame of mind. We want to make sure that they know they're not alone. I think it's a common sentiment out there that recruiting is broken. The private sector is just utter chaos right now. There's ATS system tracking that is just inconsistent. The recruiting processes are a mess, and performance is used as a scapegoat for budget cuts. So they're finding themselves, again, with this broken confidence, it's sort of recruiting hell. They go out there and they're applying to ghost jobs. Are you guys familiar with ghost jobs?
Yeah.
It's a hidden data mining machine that companies are now taking advantage of, and basically using all of these folks that are applying to all these roles to be able to gauge where can we get the most bang for our buck? When can we find people making compromise on returning to office? They're taking advantage of it. So what we're telling our clients is they really need to use that data and flip it on the head. They need to more targetedly approach their search. The days of being able to throw a resume out there at 100 roles and hear back from 10 are gone. You have to really make yourself shine and show up compared to all the other people that are throwing their hat in the ring for the same roles.
Can you talk a little bit about just for our audience, like what is a ghost job? Why do they exist? How might you identify them so you're not wasting your time?
The identification part of it is one of the hardest parts. And there are companies out there that are in the data business that are really trying to help parse out who's posting roles but not hiring. So they're comparing that data. So filtering out that noise is a little bit on the data science side. But in regards to what a ghost job is itself, I can tell you a story. Steve works for a small television production company in Atlanta. The company folds and Steve is back on the job market. His industry is pretty niche, right? Like you're looking at Atlanta, New York, maybe LA. He searches online, he notices something curious. The same role for the same job is posted in all three of those locations. A little bit of varying in the quoted salary just because of cost of living and all that. But then 3 months later, Steve's still looking. Same jobs are posted, but they're lowered all by $20,000 a year. That's curious, right? And what they're doing is these roles were never open in the first place. They're ghost jobs. We posted so these companies can, they're not really designed to hire, but to collect data. By watching who applies at each salary level, the company learns exactly where the willingness to work threshold sits. Maybe if a job is 180 grand a year, you get 5,000 applicants. At 160 grand a year, you get maybe 3,000 applicants. If 100 solid candidates is all they need, they're going to continue to lower that. And on top of that, they're getting geographical data. Who's applying where? Where's this need the most? And it's not just about pay, it's more about control. So the flexibility with return to office, everybody bringing their folks back into their corporate headquarters or these real estate investments that the companies have made, it's not really to do that as much as contain where that cost to talent ratio really shows up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Are there any other motivations for why a company might be listing without intent to hire?
There are some other reasons, and they're probably in the minority, but if they have an internal hire that they already have sort of identified as the right person for the role, and there's legal reasons where they need to post the role for 2 weeks or 30 days or something like that, they'll still do that. It's still not satisfying from the candidate's side because they don't know. They just know that they see a role pop up that they are primed and perfect for. They have everything that they're asking for, and they're just not hearing back. And that's the most frustrating part is a lot of these systems are not even saying, thank you for your time or we appreciate your interest. That seems to have gone to the wayside as well.
Yeah. And I see you as being a big advocate for the talent side, for the job seeker side. As a job seeker, what are some other sort of giveaways that it might be a ghost job that they're looking at? One thing you mentioned a minute ago was just if the same position is displayed across different geographic regions for that company. Any other telltales?
That's the big one. I think seeing it and being in the job market and folks being they're out there looking at LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever else, wherever else jobs are posted. And they're seeing these same roles just month on in. Even bigger companies like Google on their own company site, they tend to linger for the longest time. And, sometimes they are hiring for those roles, but they're just sitting there collecting data with this open port and people are, voluntarily because they need a role, giving them all the information they need to be able to use that data against the job seeker. But that same data that companies are using to optimize hiring decisions can be used by the candidates to make career decisions. So with sharper targeting, which is one of the things that we focus on the most in our firm, is you can better position yourself with higher confidence that this role is in demand. So you don't really need to be a data scientist to do that. You just need to start thinking in a more strategic way.
Can you talk? You used a word there, a phrase, sharper targeting. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? What do you mean by that?
So when we look at your candidacy as someone out there seeking, we look at it in a marketing approach. The product, instead of being a product you're marketing out to a consumer to purchase, we're looking at your candidacy as the product. And so we're trying to find a segment of the market that is demanding your skill sets, demanding your needs from a pay or in-office standpoint. And I'm not going to lie, there's, especially right now in this market, there are compromises. A lot of folks are like, well, I want my work-life balance. I'll give up some salary or a title consideration. And on the other end of the spectrum, some folks are, that's all that means anything to me. I'll work 70 hours a week as long as I can retain my title and salary. But you doing that targeted approach and polishing the candidacy in a way that's more targeted towards a specific market, and then matching the language between what you're applying to and how you're applying and how you're showing up on social media and in your marketing documents, your resume, that really makes all the difference in the world, I think.
So as a consultant at Close Cohen, you're a coach and you're helping mostly executives sort of navigate and navigate their career, manage their job search if that's sort of the phase that they're in. As far as sort of narrowing that focus, it sounds like in order to be you have to find that sort of product market fit and help them sort of navigate how to manage. Can you talk a little bit about that process of sort of narrowing down sort of their marketing message? Somebody comes to you and they have with some level of diversity in terms of their experience, maybe their roles or whatnot. How do you guide them in terms of what's the process you guys use for sort of narrowing down their marketing message? Because it sounds like that's integral to helping them find the right opportunity and not waste time with sort of shiny objects that might not really align, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think to keep with the language, we match the brand to the market. So we personalize their brand to, the very first thing we do is we sit down for an hour and we ask, what do you like about your current role? Or what did you dislike about your past role? What do you want to keep going forward? What are your passions? Our first conversation, we don't just talk about career. Where did you grow up? What was your high school like? In college, what did you do for fun? I had a client just recently that talked about a passion for music. And now this individual had a career that didn't have anything to do with that. And I said, why? Why couldn't we tie those passions to your transferable skill sets in this continued look forward into the next phase of your career? It's crucial to highlight those unique strengths from the start. And then through that thorough intake process in that initial deep dive session, we can really tease out those standout achievements and align every resume bullet with what the market and the top recruiters are looking for.
Okay. And then as you're helping them sort of navigate their job search, you kind of alluded to this earlier that, at least I've seen this as well, that there's some executive level folks that just by sheer volume, there's fewer executive level roles. And I've seen instances where folks are like, okay, well, maybe I should go for a VP position or one step down because there's just by volume, there tend to be more of those positions available. Have you seen that? And what is sort of your approach there if you feel like they're not getting traction at the level just by sheer volume? There's not as many C-level positions, for example. And if somebody's saying, hey, I'm open to going down to a VP level position or considering one, how do you guide them through that thought process?
Yeah, and in a lot of these topics we've touched on all sort of meet right there. The confidence thing, the fact that they're maybe searching for the first time in their career and they're contemplating leaving the C-suite to take a VP job just to keep the momentum in their career going. Understanding what their passions are, what they want to do, and understanding that through that process, the goal is to shine, to reverse engineer their strategy. What companies are hiring people at their level? Where are they located? What roles do people with their background tend to be in demand right now? The key takeaway genuinely at that level is got to take a strengths strengths focused approach to the job search. What skill sets do they have? What have they accomplished? And then making sure that they stand out through that polished candidacy. It's hard, like you said, just because the demand in general in the market is lower, but the demand at that level or the opportunity at that level is just so much smaller. And across the entire market, leadership roles are being consolidated into T-shaped skill sets. So there's less specialized leaders across the board.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, and I'm not as familiar too, but what do you mean by the T-shaped skills? What do you mean by that?
So a classic approach to leadership is you have a specific technical skill set, for example. You talked about at the kickoff, my background's in mechanical engineering. So in the beginning of my career, my path in my mind to leadership was become a senior mechanical engineer, and then a principal mechanical engineer, and then a mechanical manager, a mechanical lead, and then a director of mechanical engineering, and then maybe a director of entire engineering. So this very narrow vertical path that relied on that one skill set. As headcount has become interest to institutions, they're looking for people that are actually more program management based background, that they speak all the different languages across all the different verticals, so they could run as a leader that manages larger and more broad groups. And you're seeing those folks actually with that skill set be recruited into that former leadership level. That also means you can have almost fewer leaders, because the lack of specialization, the lack of narrower lanes and more broad lanes allows those individuals. And the reason why we call that T-shaped, there's T-shaped role skill sets. There's M-shaped, where you have two verticals, where you're an expert in mechanical engineering and maybe business because you got your MBA. So you have two legs to that skill set. T-shape is you came up in a technical route, so you speak that technical language or skill set language, and then you've gotten the broad experience across all the other verticals.
Got it. That's interesting. Well, what do you see, Brett, as sort of the trends in terms of the market valuing T-shaped skills versus M-shaped versus what have you? What do you see in the trends there?
I can tell you my personal journey. When I was coming up through my career, I felt like being a jack of all trades, which I was. I dabbled in a lot of different things across my career, different industries, different types of roles, different types of products. I felt like I wasn't valued because people feel like I wasn't an expert in enough to be able to get over that hump to be desirable. I feel completely different now. I feel like those T-shaped skill sets are where it's going, especially as, and we haven't touched on AI, which I'm sure you want to talk about at some point, as those tools evolve and more of the day-to-day jobs that folks do are more automated, for better or worse. Having people that have that broad shaped skill set allows them to transfer. They have transferable skills that keeps them a little more palatable in the market.
Yeah, this is a nice segue, because I think AI is that, at least in this room, the elephant in the room that we haven't touched on yet, that is a major force for a lot of what we're seeing right now. Folks that have excellent pedigrees and experience that are struggling to find their next position, and the market need seems to be evolving. And I think it was just maybe yesterday or the day before with Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon. He was talking about to his team members that they're going to be letting people go, right? And I think it's starting to become more commonplace, but he's attributing it to AI. It didn't sound like he was making any excuses, and that AI will be replacing a lot of these folks. And so he's sending that signal not only to the workforce, but I also think to government institutions that this is happening, and it's happening now. And so, I would imagine this is probably a big concern for your clients. And I'm wondering, I guess one, I want to validate that, to what extent is this a concern, and how are your clients thinking about this, and where are they, what kind of guidance are you providing in terms of how to navigate this? I'd be really curious to hear about that.
Yeah, in regards to how detrimental it's going to be to the job market and the amount of roles it's going to take, there's hyperbolic takes on the extreme side that, everybody's going to be out of a job. And then there's people that I feel like are more rooted in realism, that there are a lot of tools and opportunities, a lot like when the internet came into fruition in the late 90s and people started using email and all these other tools, that the way we are going to work is just going to change. What we've advised our clients is become familiar with it. The way that we leverage it is that data side. We want to use that data, and one of the most powerful things that you can do is AI turning that data into insights on the job market. Where are people hiring? What roles are overpaying right now because they're in demand, and where are they paying the most is super critical information that we can provide our clients when we do that process of this is what the segment that we're going to guide you towards looks like.
Yeah. And just to step back for a second, Brett, what fraction of your clients are sort of are you working with them in terms of helping them navigate sort of a concrete job search versus, they feel like they're in a good position employment wise and you're just helping them to navigate sort of more broader professional development?
Yeah, I think I could only give guidance anecdotally from what we've seen in 2025. And if I
Yeah.
had to say, just off the top of my head without any actual data to back it up, 3 to 1 is probably people searching because of a necessity
Okay.
versus the folks that are, just looking to excel or sharpen and hone their skill sets.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty consistent with what I've seen in the market as well. There's just a lot of folks that, even if they're employed gainfully, there's this anxiety around, will I have a job tomorrow? And so I'd love to talk to you a little bit about entrepreneurship. One trend that I've noticed, especially with folks that have been out of work in a full-time employment sense for some time, some as few as a few months, others as long as 18 months. It's crazy out there. I've seen one path beyond W-2 full-time employee. I've seen another path being like more fractional. So folks taking on sort of a portfolio of consulting gigs from as little as a few hours to, half-time to almost full-time. I've seen that as sort of a path, sort of a new alternative career path. I've also seen like folks starting to move into entrepreneurship. And I'm curious to see is there any other paths that you've seen, and I'm just wondering if you can comment on sort of the two paths that I've mentioned.
Yeah, I love everything about this. And if there's any upside coming out of this market, is there are a lot of really talented people that wouldn't have been pushed into going into business for themselves or dabbling in multiple things, feeling like, what do I have to lose? And then they find that they not only have a niche, but then they have success and excel and would never look back at the corporate world. I like the fact that people are, instead of asking, is anyone hiring someone like me, that they're flipping it and saying, where do people like me tend to evolve to? Where am I needed? Where can I add value? Even if it's, again, fractional CTO for a small startup, or I'm biased because here as a solopreneur myself, as a coach, that's really what we love, guiding people in that direction. It's even affected sort of the vibe around startups. Before, everybody looked at startups as, you don't want to go to a startup, you're going to work 70 hours a week. They expect one person to do 7 people's jobs. It's not really like that anymore. A lot of these tech startups are really paying good salaries. They're looking for people that are out in the job market that have all this experience in advanced corporate roles to guide them into that future that could be them, right? Yeah. So if anything, like I said, if anything good's come out of it, it's the fact that there are a lot of people that would have never given up that comfort level of a guaranteed salary through a corporate role, that they're doing a gig. They're really taking a shot at some of their passions, their dreams, and making a difference on their own, and it's fulfilling.
Yeah. So when Close Cohen, you come in as a consultant, as a coach for some of these executives, and you're helping them sort of navigate the job search, what advice would you give to someone that is they've never really done this job search thing before, because they were always recruited, right? They're always recruited to their next position. As far as like any tactical guidance or either pitfalls to avoid or things that they should definitely focus some energy on. If I just got laid off and I'm an executive, and what do I need to do? Like, what do I need to do as far as, I don't know, my resume, my LinkedIn profile? Where do I start?
The important thing to understand about almost all of our clients is they already know the basics. Everything they need to know is inside of them. We're just bubbling it to the top. The playbooks evolve in real time. They have LinkedIn, they have their updated resume, but at the senior level, it just takes a little more than just DIY fixes. It takes a tried and true strategy like our own to really point them in the right direction. Again, we really focus on that results side. Our clients are senior level professionals. They're tech leaders, MBAs, high achievers who expect excellence. So that's what we really want to make sure is shown in that brand delivery. I guess to add to your question, we really try to staff them like a critical hire. We treat their job search like you treat a business critical role. Like I said, it's a tailored strategy, structured execution. It's time for the candidates to be able to use that data, like we talked about, as a weapon to guide them into roles that they can thrive in.
Yeah. Do you also help with them sort of navigating those career paths, those alternative career paths in terms of fractional, in terms of entrepreneurship? To what extent do you provide sort of guidance, resources, or playbooks around those career paths?
We definitely track career pathways across multiple industries, right? Our clients
Mhm.
come from a very broad background. We analyze transitions from title and company or skill set to what are these high growth roles. So again, I like to do a strategy called the future self conversation. I think a lot of folks, when you give them the opportunity to say, where do you want to be in 5 years and how do you get there? Roadblocks or potential roadblocks or perceived roadblocks are right there in front of them. So it drives a little bit of hesitation to make that foot forward because you see that thing right in front of you. I flip it on its head and ask, all right, 5 years from now, you're successful, you're happy, you have what you want. How did you get there? And taking that one very simple path to looking at it from that perspective unblocks all those roadblocks because to them, those roadblocks are now in the past. They've overcome them and they can tell themselves this narrative and they can create a guided plan on how did they overcome those roadblocks.
Yeah.
Which skill did they need to unlock to open the doors they wanted to walk through? Which industries were hiring to get me here? So as we paint that picture for them of success, it's really determining what success looks like first and then looking back and developing that strategy from bottoms up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Beginning sort of with the end in mind. What would you say is sort of the biggest sort of mental block that you've seen among clients that, yeah, what do you see as just the most prevalent mental blocks? And how have you helped them to recognize them for one, and then
Mhm.
sort of overcome them?
Yeah, I think the big two, I already touched on the confidence side. These are high
Yeah.
achieving individuals that have been poached from job to job or gotten the promotions and been at the same company for 18 years. And now they find themselves without a role in that space because the space has changed underneath them. So they just don't have the reps interviewing. It's no secret. Interviews are high pressure situations for candidates. You've done all this work to put your candidacy back on the market and you've gotten some bites. Interviews are not the time to let off the gas pedal, and they feel and they know that this is like they've gotten past that first hump, they've gotten a call back. Now how are they going to close the deal, right? And so whether they're a pro at interviewing or it's been a while, there are gains to be made through practice. So we do a 3-part mock interview series. We give real tried and true, no BS feedback that really evaluates them. And we've seen it's the most joyous part of what I do is seeing that evolution and seeing people be hesitant to be recorded in these interviews and have to watch themselves come out the backside and say, well, that made me uncomfortable. But man, once I jumped in the pool, I realized it taught me how to swim.
Yeah. That's interesting. So how are you as a coach using AI, if at all? How have you integrated that into your coaching?
Well, a couple of things that, especially as 2025 goes on, that we're looking to utilize is, again, using data to drive our insights into guiding folks into certain segments of the market. The best use of that is to translate that data into digestible insights, whether it's through a dashboard or neat visuals, and using that to be able to explain to a client that I know you've been in product for so long, but there's product managers aren't the hot market right now. But with all your transferable skills, you could transform yourself into this really easily, and it's fruitful, and it would be beneficial, and there's still a path to leadership. Being able to transfer that in a very visual way through AI has been super helpful. And
And Brett,
again, we're diving into that right now, and
yeah,
I think as 2025 goes on, it'll continue to bloom.
as a recruiter that's worked with a lot of folks over the past decade plus,
Mm-hmm.
I know that career pivots they're one of the most challenging things somebody can manage in their career. You've
Mm-hmm.
done pivots yourself, so have I. But I've done them in times where there was opportunities and I was kind of pursuing the opportunities. Now it's sort of like folks are almost compelled. It's not that they're running to an opportunity per se, but they're avoiding sort of a dead end that they've discovered or that they
Mm-hmm.
feel that they're faced with. And so they're almost compelled to pivot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about sort of inventorying portable skills and things like that. What advice would you give to somebody beyond that is considering a pivot at this time?
Yeah, I think it all goes down to transferable skills. And I think before I was even a coach with Close Cohen, I wrote an article on LinkedIn where there wasn't a big desire by companies to pull people in with transferable skills. That aspect of that T-shaped skill set is really starting to evolve the way that companies bring those folks in, because those transferable skills is the T branches of those skill sets. So when we talk to our clients, we highlight the skills. We make a skills forward approach to everything we do in their candidacy, whether it's their resume or their LinkedIn. What have you accomplished, the quantifiable outcomes, but what skills really contributed to those outcomes? What companies are hiring people with your skills?
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So, let's see. We talked a little bit about mindset shifts. We talked a little bit about pivots. Yeah, pivots are a fascinating thing. And it's tough for folks right now to sort of manage a pivot, but a lot of them are just compelled to do so right now. Having that sort of internal data about what you're passionate about, what you're excited about, what skills you have, what experiences you have, and then sort of doing that external sort of data collection to see how that might map to the market need it sounds like that's an exercise that you help your clients with. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'd love to hear your take on just sort of being in the former or recruiting space. What is your take on all of it? I know that you have to leverage some of these new tools, these new methodologies. For example, LinkedIn is what it is, for better or for worse, but a magnetic LinkedIn profile is a non-negotiable if you want to network and find these opportunities come out.
Yeah.
Is that similar to what you're seeing from your end of the spectrum, from your backside view?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that we're seeing an arms race, right? We are seeing sort of this distribution of folks that are early adopters of AI, and they are actively applying it in creative new ways with respect to how they're branding and marketing themselves through the personal, professional brand. And I think that the first movers on that that are quick to adopt the technology and apply it will realize some gains, some benefits to that. There's always going to be laggards, but as the laggards start to catch up, you're going to start to see like the rising tide of more polished resumes and more polished LinkedIn profiles. So it makes it tougher for the employer to kind of discern which folks are legitimately stronger than others in their stack of 500 resumes. And so they're starting to use more AI to kind of tease out the signal from all that inbound. And so I think that, what I recommend to folks is that they really start to learn how to manage their personal, professional brand more effectively, because that translates, that translates across the board, whether you're looking for a job, you are starting a business, you are doing fractional work, whatever you might be doing, it's going to realize benefit from the investment you put into sort of furthering your personal and professional brand. And a lot of times, people are starting with LinkedIn, right? Because that's where a lot of professionals live. But, one thing that we're doing on our end, because we're going through a bit of a transformation ourselves, because I think recruiting is the way it's been over the past 2-3 decades, it's going to change quite a bit, I think. Just like every other discipline, whether there's product management, software engineering, every discipline, every knowledge-based discipline or function, I think is going to be reinvented, or it's going to evolve quite a bit it's already happening. It's already happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree. I was going to say that, you hit the nail on the head with the personalization of the brand. And that at the crux of it, that's what we're doing at Close Cohen. We're helping with that brand identity. And again, making sure it's targeted towards something that is not only desirable, but available.
Yeah.
So the combination of those three things, the strong brand, the targeting, it's been a pretty good outcome for our clients. We've seen the market, people are searching up to 12 to 18 months. Again, anecdotally, my last 10 clients, I had 5 individuals that got interviews and or offers within we do 7 weeks of sessions, which is great. And you love hearing that, because they're like, I was prepared, or my resume shone through, or I didn't even think to look on WellFound for a role. And I found this, company that was looking for a fractional CISO role. That kind of stuff we're hearing real time. So that's the value that we're definitely bringing to our candidates. You brought up another question. With the advent of AI, do you feel like the variability in resumes and the variability in all of these things is going to get so minimal that it's going to be really hard to discern? Are resumes going the way of the dinosaur? Are they going out the window?
I have my
So,
own opinions on this.
yeah,
I
I'd
think
love to hear it.
resumes have been around for whatever 75 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that there's such a flat representation of the
Right.
professional, and I think that I think they're quite archaic. And I think in
Mm-hmm.
this day of digital and multimedia, video, voice, what have you, VR, right? Like I think a higher fidelity representation of you as a professional is it's due. It's way past due. There are services out there. One is called Delphi, and there isn't sort of an industry standard for what they call these things, but you might have heard of terms like second brain or
Mm-hmm.
avatar or digital twin. But
Yeah.
basically they're a next level digital representation of who you are typically as a professional, right? So you can basically train these bots. You upload your resume, upload your LinkedIn profile, you can upload samples of your work, you can you can talk to it and answer FAQs, you can answer basic interview questions, and now somebody can actually go to these things and interact with it through various channels or
Mm-hmm.
various UIs, like a chat UI, a web chat, an SMS chat, a phone call, a video thing, right? And it's basically you, it's a representation of you that can answer questions and engage almost as if it's you. I mean, this hasn't taken hold as sort of the de facto next level of resumes, but I think it's going in that direction because to your suggestion earlier about the variability of resumes, I think there's still a wide distribution of variability in resumes. But I think again, as the laggards start to catch up in terms of adoption and application of generative AI to your resume, the resumes they'll just start to be perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so for somebody looking at these things, it's like, how do you discern, right? And are these things factual, right? Or are they just sort of telling me as a recruiter what I want to hear? So I give them a call, right? And so yeah, I think the variability is still there, but I think what you're seeing is a trend of minimized variability as these LLMs and these LLM based tools are refining resumes to such a high degree that, it's sort of borderline lying, but at the same time, candidates are getting desperate.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what do I do?
Yeah, and
So
then probably another a bellwether is cover letters. Are cover letters even useful anymore? Because they all feel the same because people are going to ChatGPT and having them
yeah,
cranked out to match the role. So it's not really an ability to stand out when it's just the same as everyone else.
yeah.
And whether it's the digital twin or a human in the future, that's why we really lean on continue to build your network. The resume isn't what's getting folks jobs. It's that second degree connection to someone that that can be your advocate, that says,
Yeah.
you've done great things, or hey, Joe has done great things, you should hire Joe, is even more powerful than I've done great things. So
Yeah.
we focus on things like the elevator pitch, a powerful introduction that can, doesn't leave anything to chance, that knockout pitch that's going to ignite genuine connections and convert them into an insider referral from someone else. We do that just continuously to maintain that momentum and growing the network.
Yeah. And those are timeless skills, right? The ability to give a verbal elevator pitch when you're on the phone, when you're talking with somebody on the street, on a random event, right? And so folks should have that dialed, especially folks that have been working for 2 or 3 decades that
Yeah.
never had to do that in terms of
Mm-hmm.
pitching themselves, right? They pitch their product, they pitch their company, they pitch their service, but they've never really had to do that because they've always been recruited. They've always been poached from their previous position, right? So they've never really had to sell themselves per se, right? Brett, I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, just any quick 1-2 punches on sort of networking tips?
I mean, get out there. I have a great story that I'll spare you the 5 minutes on, where a connection I made from my undergrad. I was close to, due to maybe some posts on Facebook back when people were still on Facebook. I was about to block. I just didn't want to see some of the stuff that was coming across. But I was like, so and so is such a great dude. I really enjoyed hanging out with him in undergrad. It was like 4 weeks later, he posted, does anybody want to join my design team at Motorola working on smartphone? And I had been going back to school to learn 3D parametric modeling. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, I do. 2.5 weeks later, I was hired. And that one connection set forth a chain of events through my entire life and career that I can track to My wife and I moving to California, we finding a fertilization doctor that was the impetus of us having two amazing children. If I had hit block on that one person, that one networking opportunity, all those things would have changed. A butterfly effect, that my life would be completely different. So you don't know, and everybody should just go out with that. I don't know how this is going to benefit me. I'm not doing it to benefit me. I'm going out there to connect with people, be part of the environment, be part of the world, and good things happen. Go out and volunteer, go out and join a club where you're, again, mentoring a younger version of yourself or whatever it is. Put good into the world and it'll pay back.
I love that. I think all too often folks, they get caught in sort of the same circles. This idea of volunteering, as one example, as one channel, allows you to connect with people that you might not normally connect with, right? And it sort of fosters this idea of these loose connections, right? Your strong connections are your friends, your boss, current or former, your peers, current or former, but these weak connections, like this, I think the person that you were mentioning that was at Motorola, it sounds like he was a weak connection, but it gave you exposure to something that, maybe your stronger connections just didn't have exposure to. And so looking for different channels that foster weak connections to other networks, right, that are outside of your your natural network. I think that's a great avenue, a great way to kind of think about. And you have to be open-minded about things, right? It's that balance of being open-minded, but also knowing what to say no to and being conscious about that. I think that's really important. I never get that perfect, but it's something I strive to optimize.
Well, I can say that one of the things that we tell our executive coaching clients, because we do have the two sides of the house, we do the career candidacy. So a lot of what we've talked about today is helping people either enroll or out of role for one reason or another, find that next opportunity. But we do traditional executive coaching on the side. And one of the things we tell those folks is, I know you've had your head down. I know that you've been a grindstone for a while, but don't lose sight of those aspects of being out there. The old adage, the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best day is today. So start that tree, which is your network, growing today, even if you haven't been focusing on it because you've had your nose to the grindstone. Because you don't know when it'll benefit you. You don't know when it'll benefit someone else, and you don't know when you need it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, to your point earlier about having a sort of an elevator pitch, and I don't mean that in like a cheesy way, but when you're networking, being somebody or having a message that is easy to remember goes such a long way. Because if you stand for everything, nobody's going to remember it, and you basically don't stand for anything, right?
Yep.
And when you're networking, having a tight messaging about who you are, what you do, what you're looking for, who you serve, that, if they can remember that, you're already more than halfway there. But if it's confusing and they can't remember it, you missed opportunity, right?
Yep. We teach a very tried and true method, which is present, past, future. Where are you now? What have you done in the past, and where do you want to go? We go deeper into that, obviously, though just at that high level, it's a very concise message that gives everybody, they need to know what your career highlights are, and what motivates you. And if you consider those two things, that's what people want to know about a potential new teammate or new leader.
Yeah. I love it, Brett. So one last question here. If I've never worked with a coach before and I'm looking for a firm or a specific coach to help me sort of navigate these interesting, challenging times in terms of my profession, in terms of my job search, what should I look for in a firm and in a coach? And what are some things that I should avoid?
There are, in the coaching world, a broad range of types of coaches. At Close Cohen, we really pride ourselves on being data-driven. We consider what we do, especially on the candidate side, a roadmap. And that language translates to anybody that's worked in product, anybody that's worked in marketing, and we format it in a way, in a language that resonates with those folks. We've lived in these corporate worlds. We've lived in tech, med tech, digital product, physical product, manufacturing, food manufacturing. It doesn't matter. We have those experiences. So I would say look for someone that knows your language. Go to the website and see what the data says about the success rate. Go to the website and see if they have, and I'll biased here because we have our roadmap laid out pretty clearly on what we will do during our sessions with you. A lot of folks don't have that because it's vapory. It's very, we'll just call it blustery, and it's a lot of rah, but not a lot of tangible outcomes and results. So stick with the folks that are really looking to have you have success and really get you those tangible results. They need to be able to optimize your job search. They need to create a narrative that matches market signals. They need to understand that LinkedIn presence is a non-negotiable. And those are the things that we do.
Okay, awesome. And Brett, what is the website and how can folks connect with you?
Yes, we're at closecohen.com. That's CLOSECOHEN.com. And LinkedIn is a great place. We're very active on LinkedIn. Even if you just follow us for some tips and tricks and get our insights and just get a good feel for what our coaching vibe is, it's a great place to get that first inclination.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate having you on the show here and sharing with us what you're seeing out there and how folks might be able to orient themselves in this brave new world here. Everyone connect with Brett online on LinkedIn, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.